This was the week the federal government walked away from AI regulation, and the industry discovered what that actually costs. Wow. I mean, that single sentence right there, it perfectly captures the absolute whiplash of May 25th through the 29th, 2026. We are looking at a hyper-compressed timeline where massive technological leaps, literally eye-watering financial valuations, severe security vulnerabilities, and chaotic political maneuvering, they all just collided. If you really want to understand the true price of unregulated, hyper-accelerated AI adoption, we have to look closely at what happened during these 5 critical days.
So welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this material today because honestly, it fundamentally rewrites how we need to think about enterprise tech. If your company is using AI right now, and let's be real, whose isn't, the events of this week are going to directly impact your budget and your security posture. We are doing a deep dive into what is essentially AI's $900 billion hangover. We're going to unpack the events of late May 2026, day by day, to see exactly how astronomical valuations crashed head-on into severe security and financial realities. The implications here are just staggering, so let's get right into it.
Okay, so here's exactly how we're going to break this all down today. First, AI as the attack vector. Then, dropping rules while raising billions. Third, the enterprise cost reckoning. Fourth, drawing lines in the sand. And finally, the state-level scramble. All right, let's jump straight into Monday.
Part 1, AI as the attack vector, or as I like to call it, the Monday wake-up call.
So the holiday weekend had literally just wrapped up, right? But security teams across the industry woke up to a massive headache: the trapdoor hack. Malware had planted zero-width Unicode characters. This is invisible text that humans actually cannot see with the naked eye, straight into local AI configuration files like .cursor rules. And it didn't just hit one place. It hit major software registries across the board simultaneously. We're talking NPM for JavaScript, PyPI for Python, all at once. And to make matters worse, CISA, the Federal Cyber Defense Agency, well, they were completely tied up fighting 15,000 totally unrelated database attacks during this exact same window. Talk about bad timing.
And this brilliantly illustrates the terrifying sequence of how it actually played out. Step 1, the invisible characters are planted. Step 2, AI coding assistants, doing exactly what they're supposed to do, automatically parse these files to gain project context. But step 3 is where the entire paradigm shifts. The payload bypassed the host machine entirely. Instead, it executed through the AI agent's own permissions to secretly harvest AWS keys, GitHub tokens, and even crypto wallets. Can you imagine having to sit down and tell your boss that your expensive new AI assistant was the actual attack vector? Just brutal.
Which brings us to Tuesday. Part 2, dropping rules and raising billions. Tuesday's massive disconnect.
Tuesday showcased an absolutely unbelievable disconnect between public posture and private capital. Get this, a White House executive order that was meant to establish just a lightweight 90-day review for frontier AI was abruptly killed, and it was killed by basically 3 phone calls from tech readers: Elon Musk for XAI, Mark Zuckerberg for Meta, and David Sachs. Their main argument was that regulation hinders our lead over China. Yet on that exact same day, Anthropic closed a $30 billion funding round at a mind-boggling $900 billion valuation, officially vaulting them right past OpenAI.
To really understand the sheer momentum driving that $900 billion valuation, you just have to look at this staggering revenue trajectory. Anthropic went from an $87 million annualized run rate in early 2024 to $30 billion by April 2026. And the projection for June? $50 billion, right ahead of a planned October IPO. So think about that. The industry successfully kills a basic 90-day safety framework in the morning and then turns around and celebrates a near $1 trillion valuation in the afternoon. It's wild.
Now we hit Wednesday, Part 3, the enterprise cost reckoning, where the bill finally arrives.
By midweek, the sheer expense of implementing these frontier models became literally impossible for the enterprise world to ignore. Anthropic and KPMG formalized a massive global deployment, embedding Claude Code directly into KPMG's digital gateway platform. Now, keep in mind, this isn't just some small pilot program. This covers over 276,000 employees across 138 countries. The key takeaway here is the deployment model itself. This is not a standalone chat window bolted onto the side of a screen. Claude is being embedded at the foundational platform layer where the actual tax, legal, and private equity work happens. AI officially transitioned from a neat tool into core essential infrastructure.
But here's the catch. The reality of usage-based token pricing, where you are literally paying for every fraction of a word the AI processes, it hit incredibly hard. Just look at the fallout. Microsoft's internal Claude Code pilot was unceremoniously canceled. Why? Because they burned through their entire annual AI budget in a matter of months. Uber did the exact same thing. They deployed enterprise-wide and spent their entire 2026 AI budget in just 4 months. Let that sink in for a second. Some of the most well-funded tech giants on the planet are running out of their AI allowance before summer even starts. No way around it. That is a massive problem.
So you might be wondering, why on earth did those budgets evaporate so fast? Well, here's your answer. 70% of Uber's committed codebase is now being generated by AI tools like Claude and Cursor. 70%. When your engineering output relies that heavily on automated generation, the return on investment question is no longer just some theoretical debate for next quarter's board meeting. It is a critical, immediate financial crisis.
All right, moving on to Thursday, Part 4, Lines in the Sand. This is where we see some serious pushback.
It's absolutely crucial we look at this impartially to understand the shifting geopolitical landscape. Vice President Vance delivered a completely unambiguous stance on AI and warfare at the Air Force Academy, stating, quote, "Decisions over life and death must be made by humans and not machines." By actually invoking a new papal encyclical to argue against outsourcing moral decision-making to autonomous AI, he placed a firm, philosophical line in the sand directly from the second highest office in the country.
Meanwhile, across the globe, we're seeing a different kind of boundary being drawn. The Canadian and German companies Cohere and Aleph Alpha announced a massive merger, creating a combined entity with a $20 billion valuation. Now, this isn't just typical startup news. This has explicit, in-person backing from the digital ministers of both Canada and Germany. Throw in a $600 million commitment from the Schwartz Group, the folks behind Little and Kaufland, and what you have is the birth of true sovereign AI, offered through the Stack-it Cloud platform. This represents the absolute most credible non-US alternative to AI infrastructure built to date. We're talking real government contracts and real European capital pushing back against US dominance.
And that brings us to Friday, Part 5, the state-level scramble. Total chaos.
The timeline for Friday is just fascinating, and it brings this ultimate irony. In the morning, Anthropic releases Claude Opus 4.8, which features dynamic workflows capable of spinning up hundreds of parallel subagents. Fast, cheap, and powerful. By the afternoon, OpenAI voluntarily publishes a frontier governance framework mapping out severe Tier 2 and Tier 3 autonomous risks. And then, in the evening, the legislative machine woke up. Because that federal review window was killed earlier in the week on Tuesday, it created this massive vacuum. So states like California, Illinois, Louisiana, and Arizona rushed in, advancing dozens of state AI bills. Enterprise legal teams literally went to sleep on Friday, having inherited a permanent, fragmented 50-state compliance nightmare.
So let's recap this crazy week. The federal floor was completely removed. Massive capital rounds closed. Budgets were absolutely decimated by token costs, and a chaotic 50-state regulatory machine fired up. As we look ahead to next week's Microsoft Build and the looming reality of GitHub Copilot token billing, the cost reckoning is only accelerating. The biggest leverage in the art of the deal is walking away, which the industry successfully did on Tuesday. But it leaves us with this final provocative thought. What happens when the industry inevitably has to come back to the negotiating table on significantly worse terms? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I'll see you next time.